All right, everybody, welcome back to the Sex and Bacon podcast. On today's episode, I have with me Katie Runyan, and Katie is the founder of something called Faithful Fling, which is you are a sex role play expert. Did I say that correctly? Or role play sex expert?
However you want to say it. It's all
Okay,
the same to
perfect.
me,
All of
right?
it. Perfect.
So role play expert, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So can you kind of just explain really what that means and how you got into it?
Okay, so being a role play expert means that I have on our website created over 40 different role play scenarios that I have been able to help thousands of couples across the world create really unique, intriguing date nights with their partner by simply taking on a fresh, different, new persona and having a date night together. I think a role play date can get a little bit of a bad, rap because you think you're just dressing up all the time or something. And that's not the case at all. Sometimes we just want you to, have a date night out on the town where you're not going to be wearing a wig or in a costume, but you're simply going to be yourself by changing
Right.
up your look by just a little bit, but having experience with your partner by changing up your personality type a little bit or your look or your preferences and trying to kind of take on some different personas that are going to feel a little bit intriguing and might even challenge you a little bit.
Yeah. How did you get into this?
Well, my husband and I started role playing quite a while ago. We've been married for 25 years. And about 7 years into our marriage, we found ourselves kind of in a roommate syndrome where I was full on in motherhood and I gave all of everything that I was to those cute kiddos, and he got my leftovers. And it's super fair to say that he was very into his career and trying to live a life, and we just really did not prioritize each other, and we just became roommates. And one time we were watching television and we saw this iconic pop star pop up, and she had her hair in like pigtails and the short mini skirt on, and she was singing her song, and he looked at me and he kind of flippantly said, hey, why don't you ever dress up for me? And instead of getting defensive or like angry at that, I really got curious about it. Like, does that sound fun to me? And it did. And I kind of went with it. I was like, maybe I will dress up for him. I think I'm going to shock him. This is something I could do. I like the idea of changing up my appearance a little bit. I think it would be fun to dress up in this short skirt and kind of recreate that look of that iconic pop star, but making it me still. So I did. I took those kids and I found the cute little short plaid mini skirt, and I had a shirt I already had, and I got really handy with a pair of scissors. I put my hair up in like these cute little low slung pony or pigtails. I wore sexy tights with a pair of boots that I already had. But when you put all of that together, you don't have to always have something brand new to reveal. But when you add in all these small elements of changes, it helps you kind of feel different. It helped me put mommy mode on the back burner and kind of like sit into this new persona that I just created. So I put those kids to bed. Then I got all the way ready. And I knew it was a night that my husband was going to be coming home late from a soccer game. And when I heard the garage door, I went to the entrance to the house from the garage, and I was standing there and he was not expecting it at all. So from that one little comment of, why don't you ever dress up for me? I went with it really big, and I was crazy vulnerable and really put myself out there with the knowledge that he really would like to see me dress up.
Right.
So it was a big, bold move, but I tried it. I trusted him that we could have a fun time with it. And I said, Professor Jones, I've been waiting on you. And that guy, he was like, I'm sorry I kept you waiting. So it was really fun. And we just recognized that those small yet impactful, intentional way of trying to create a moment where we could reconnect again and see each other, not just as parents to this beautiful family that we created, but also as individual people that want to have a life together and reconnect in a truly emotional way. And again, am I going to say like a role play date is what brought us all back together? No, but it was a catalyst that honestly did bring us back together. It made him think about me way more like, dang, my wife is this fun, cute person I met a long time ago. And here she is still surprising me 7 years of marriage later. And I liked all the attention. And then we just decided to create Faithful Fling because when we were exploring having these unique role play dates together that we wanted, we wished there was something like Faithful Fling out there to help you have a unique experience together. So when you look it up online, you're going to be like, oh, you have all these classic scenarios like a naughty nurse or a French
Yeah.
maid or a police officer or like what I did with a professor and a grad student. But we wanted so much more for you. We want to do all the work so you can have all the fun. And that's what we decided to create. And after writing, over 40 different intensive role play scenarios, I am the role play expert. And that is how it all came about, almost, oh gosh, 15, 16 years ago. And we have role played from having small little kids all the way through the youth sports era where you're so busy you
Mhm.
don't even know what day of the week is, to high school kids where they're in and out of the house all the time. We had an empty nest for a little while. So with that unique perspective, when I'm writing these role play date scenarios, I'm able to kind of think about all of the problems that you may have in securing the right location or the time that you might
Mhm.
want to have to helping you experience something different. So when I say different though, Sarah, different doesn't have to be better or worse. It's simply something that's not in your typical routine. And that's what a role play date is going to do. It's going to help you break free from monotonous date night routines, reignite some of that passion back into the bedroom, help you feel again those like first date butterflies, as well as fulfill some of those classic fantasies, but all in the comfort and safety of your own relationship. Because just because you have a fantasy, it doesn't mean that you want to do it in real life.
Right.
Not at all. Maybe I think it would be really hot to dress up as a sexy French maid and seduce my husband. Certainly doesn't mean I'm going to walk down a hallway in a French maid and like just seduce some random man that I see.
Mhm.
No. And my husband and I recognize that when we do have these fantasies or a role play date, it's just the two of us that are in these. And we know that, like, if I'm going to have the role of Lydia or something, a different name,
Mhm.
that it's really still me. I'm just using my imagination. I am being playful with you. I'm embracing my erotic mind, like all of these things, and we're blending it together and having a good time.
Mhm.
And that's kind of what we're able to do.
I would imagine, and I mean, just like being a person speaking from like experience, I know for myself that even just putting on lingerie for somebody is a very nerve-wracking experience where it's like, I think it's beautiful and sexy, but it's like, unless my partner is actually asking for it and being like, I'd love to see you in this, I think it's beautiful and sexy. It's like, I've always felt kind of like uncomfortable just to be the person to just put it on and, they walk in because it's like, I think no matter what, we always fear that rejection of like, what if they don't like it? Or, in our minds in that moment, it's like we're turned on and we're like, yeah, you dress up, you put on all this stuff. And then I think so many times, your partner could come through the door and maybe they had a really bad day and they're not in the mood and they're stressed and they walk in and they see you. And it's not even necessarily about rejecting you. It's just in general, they're so not there in their headspace, but we take that on then as women as rejection in that moment if all of a sudden they're not receptive to the surprise and the lingerie and all these things that we felt like we went out of our way to do for them. So in the role play scenario, I feel like if I'm understanding it correctly, it's both parties then are being like, hey, we want to do this together. So you're both
Yeah.
aware of the fact that we're initiating this. So it's safe for each person to put themselves in that vulnerable position, knowing we're going to go down this road versus the woman who just thinks she's going to surprise her partner in some
Right.
getup and then gets rejected, not because of her and what she's wearing, but because of maybe other circumstances. And you feel stupid and you feel silly. And then you never want to do it again because of how it made you feel in that one moment. Right?
I would totally agree with that. Like that
Mhm.
was a bold move that I took from one comment that
Mhm.
he said to take it that level, that far. And what would I have done if he had actually said, "Oh, no, not right now." I guarantee you we
Yeah.
wouldn't have created Faithful Fling and I wouldn't have become a writer of role play
Mhm.
scenarios and all of this. But typically that is not how you're going to start delving into exploring role play dates with your partner. Usually one of you is going to say, "Hey, I listened to this podcast
Mhm.
and the idea of role play came up. I looked up, an article and it sounds really intriguing to me." And you know how I love to try to increase our connection and pleasure. And I think that role playing might be just the thing. And then you want to tell them what that would look like for you. Like, hey, I really think it would be fun to dress up and seduce you. What do you think about it? We can listen to this podcast together. And then here are some questions that you should definitely ask yourselves as a couple, because sometimes we find that one spouse really wants to try and the other one is like totally not interested. Absolutely normal. And maybe if you're the one that's like, I don't want to do that, that sounds ridiculous. I think I would feel silly. That's totally valid. And that is okay. Just hear your spouse out. Get curious as to why they're curious about it too. Like we're always talking about curiosity, because I feel like staying open to curiosity is going to keep your mind wide open and willingness to listen as well. But here are a few questions. Will having a role play date together, is that going to be enjoyable and a connecting experience for both of us? Will having a role play enhance our marriage relationship or our date night? Knowing that our role play dates are designed to keep monogamy hot and they're just between us, does that help you feel safe and know that this is like going to be a consensual experience between just you and I? Are you willing to tap into your erotic mind? And are you willing to blend your erotic mind with mine? Do you want to add more playfulness and intentionality to our relationship and then go from there? And if your partner is like, no, thank you, then that's okay. Maybe you can revisit the conversation again in the future. Invite them to listen to this podcast. We offer a free 21-day trial, so you could check out, our first role play description. It's called the test drive, and it's 100% free. You can just, hop on there and read your side of a role play, or we call them flings on our website, and kind of see what maybe having a role play date with Faithful Fling could look like. And you never know unless you ask your spouse. Like they might surprise you. And
Do you find you have more men or women reaching out to you that are like going down this road to kind of really look into it?
Sarah, so I always feel like I find a trend because we know who signs up, like if you're the husband and you signed up, or if you're the wife. And I feel like, oh, we finally found the trend. It's the men. And then the next, 100 are the women that sign up. So honestly, it's about a 50-50 shot of who is going and who is initiating and who wants to try it. I think that sometimes I get more feedback from like a husband. How would I help my wife feel more excited about this or not so awkward? I think that they will ask for help a little bit more than I don't typically hear from. I mean, I hear from both sides, but in general, I would say that a little bit more from the husbands are, how could I encourage my wife to be willing to try something a little bit different? So
do you think the women are just the ones that are feeling naturally a little bit more silly to act as somebody else? Like we're the ones that are in our heads a little bit more of like, I'm going to feel stupid, like pretending to be somebody else. Or it's I guess, an internal thing. If we're not feeling confident as ourselves, how do I feel confident as somebody else without laughing at myself, getting like the giggles, all of those things, breaking character because it's like, I don't know how to do this. Or truthfully, maybe even getting mad. It's like, you weren't turned on by me 3 months ago when I tried to initiate, and all of a sudden now I'm dressed like
I have to be
this person, and you're turned on by me pretending to be somebody else. Like, and they're offended. Yeah.
It could be so resentful. So typically it's not the role play that is the problem here. You've got some other issues that are coming out because of a role play date, right? Or your confidence is a little lacking, or maybe the trust in your spouse to be vulnerable with isn't quite there. Then I do think as women, we take things really personal, and that rejection stays and it can get stuck in there, and it actually can be like a complete block for you to want to try fresh and different things. So if you're the one that's asking and you've done this before, maybe there's some repair that needs to be done, right? So it can be way more in depth than just simply having a role play date. It's my hope that when you're having these conversations about implementing this into your relationship, that you have it, or you're actively working on gaining a better level of trust, that you're willing to be vulnerable, that you can giggle and mess up and laugh and be fine and be like, oh, we did not ruin it. We're just going to hop back into character. That's totally normal. That you can, talk about things that may be hard. Like, I know you put yourself out and I denied you, and that was really hard. Are you willing to trust me to try again? Right. So you've got all these things. And if we can have those high levels of emotional intimacy, like the things we were just discussing, and you add in playfulness and newness and novelty and fantasy, that's when it can like elevate and you're just like, oh, that was really fun. Some people, Sarah, will have the date in their fresh new personas, but then when it maybe turns a little physical, if they both, everything's consensual on our website, obviously. And if it gets there, they kind of like mentally just like click out of their roles and become themselves again. So those are
Right.
some of like the typical questions people ask, like, do you feel like you're having a mental affair? And as for me and my husband, we don't. We know who we each are. We just know that it's kind of fun to try on it, like a different character to try to elicit some of those first date butterflies and knowing that there's going to be some surprises that will be revealed that you're probably not going to think up on your own. And that can be it. But I do have a question for you. So if you're kind of like, I think I'm not confident enough, or I feel like it would be too awkward, what happens if you just let it be fun? Like, what happens if you let go of the perfectionism? What would
Yeah.
happen if you stopped people pleasing? This, like, you're not supposed to do that. That might not be right or wrong. Like, what happens if you both want to do it and you decide yes, and you're like, allow it to be fun? What if you allowed yourself to be more spontaneous and more
Right.
playful? What if stepping into something fresh and new and vibrant and different, and you just still like let it be fun? Just let it be fun. What if you prioritized your effort over your perceived skill set? Like,
Yeah.
I really tried hard and I really tried to put down, or I really put a lot of intention and energy and effort into creating something different with you. And maybe it wasn't as flawless as I thought, but darn it, it was fun. We
Yeah.
still connected. And I'm willing to try it again because I think the next time could even be better. I don't know if you've picked up a habit or not a habit, a hobby as you've gotten older. I picked up pickleball. So it's
Yeah.
funny. You're like, why would that sound so dumb? It's kind of like a wiffle ball and you're hitting it
Yeah.
around. And I know we're talking about pickleball, but we can also kind of equate it to having a role play. That sounds so dumb. I would never want to do it. And then you get into it and you're like, oh, I get it. I
Yeah.
totally get it. That was really fun. And then the next time you play, you're a little bit better at it. And then the next time you're
Yeah.
able to add in different strategy and techniques. And that's just the thing with a role play date, is that they just get better with time. And if you have an open mind and you're allowing it to be fun instead of some crazy serious thing, and like, don't take yourself so serious. Like, and don't forget, you and your partner are on the same page. Like, if I
Right.
say I'm from North Carolina, I would highly doubt my husband, John, is going to be like, oh, yeah. So what high school did you go to? And what interstate did you take to get there? Like, no, we're trying to blend something together. And when you're willing to try something different, in this case, again, we're talking about a role play date, you're telling your partner so much like, hey, my willingness to have this date with you shows that I prioritize our relationship because I'm willing to be intentional with my time, energy, effort, even some finances to create something fresh,
Yeah.
vibrant, and new with you. It shows to your spouse that you're willing to trust them to be vulnerable with. When you have those high levels of emotional intimacy and you add in levels of fantasy and playfulness, it's where it really stays hot. The other thing is, when you're willing to have this role play date, you are saying, I'm going to tap into that place deep inside of me, my erotic mind, and that's where creativity and desire and curiosity lie. You're inviting your spouse to tap into their erotic mind and blend together these like a fresh story, scenario, situation, and see what you can come up with together. Because that's when like a sexual experience, they're fabulous. But when you bring in your eroticism to it, it
Right.
just elevates everything to a different level. And having a role play date is a tool to tap into your eroticism. Obviously, you can do that all on your own. You don't have to have a role play date to do it. But I am the role play expert. So that's what we're
Do
talking
you get
about.
couples reaching out to you and giving you a very specific like storyline or dynamic of like what they want to do and asking you to fine tune and turn that into a role play for them? Like, because obviously you have ones you've created, scenarios, fantasies.
Yeah,
So I know everybody's imagination can be outside of that. So do you ever have that then with somebody's just like, this is what we want to do, but we don't know how to bring it to life?
sure.
Can you help us, you know, create this for us? Or is it more just basically everything you guys have there kind of covers everything?
Well, I mean, I hope it does. I hope it hasn't covered everything. We have 46 on our website right
Mhm.
now. So these are going to be Very similar. Once you become a subscriber to Faithful Fling, you get your first role play date for free. Always. It's always free. Then you have 21 days to decide. But once you have access, you get to read your first role play date scenario. And then you get kind of like the back of a book. You get all these summaries for our 45 other role play dates. So that's going to be able to help you. And we've organized them in such a way where there's like going out flings or special occasion flings or surprises for him, surprises for her. But some of those fantasy elements that you were talking about where someone wants to explore, we do write in those. So common fantasy elements that you could see would be like two strangers with wild instant attraction. Like, I think it's kind of fun to go sit in a hotel bar and then my husband walk in, like, I can't last very long, like 3-4 minutes later, and then like sit next to me and we kind of act like we're strangers. Like there must be something inside of me that likes to think, wow, I'm still attractive enough that he's going to see me across the room and he wants to sit and talk to me. So when another fantasy element is like maybe one partner gets to act innocent and the other partner gets to be their teacher all over again. So if you're able to put yourself in like, I've never experienced this before, it can be really hot and fun. But, you know, obviously I have before, but if I can kind of get myself into feeling like, wow, what would it be like all over again? So it's a lot of internal curiosity, imagination building. Being another fantasy element is like being sexually intimate in a location that isn't your bedroom. There's beauty and comfort, and that's what you're doing, right? You're just comfortable behind a locked door where you know where everything is. I think that's beautiful. I love that. But sometimes maybe the stairs would be fun. Maybe right when you walk in from the garage. So, and then you're also talking a little bit about kink. And I know, you know, we all talk about these things like somebody's like high level of kink might be someone's random Tuesday. So
do you guys
never
have
know.
some that have that? Do you guys have
Like
more
some
that are
of
a little
them
bit...
maybe would a little, oh yeah, we have, so all of ours will have like a spice it up section on ways that you can elevate it and get it like keep it really spicy. So I don't use explicit language or imagery, but the suggestions we give you are pretty spicy and naughty and kind of fun. So like maybe light bondage, like or a blindfold, or you're trying different positions. And again, that could be somebody's regular Tuesday. But are you going to talk about, like I just wrote one the other day, we thought it might be fun to try to incorporate a little bit of like bondage. All right. What does that look like? Maybe you've never tried it before and you're just going to put your hands in front of you. So you've got all sorts of movement. Or we ask you, like one hand or two hands, or maybe this is something you do all the time and you've got straps under your bed and you're just like, I don't know. So
do you guys test it out first as a couple so that you guys can kind of actually fine tune the details of like knowing what did or did not work position wise, being tied a certain way so that you can kind of give those extra tips and tricks as to how to use those things? Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's fun for you guys.
Like, I know. Hello, right? That's fun for us.
Yeah.
But like one thing that I'm kind of sad about, like I wish someone else would write one for me, is because what's unique about Faithful Fling is that we don't just give you a story and we don't just like write a scenario and say dress up and now go have sex. We want so much more for you. Like, so the first one is like our scenarios are written a little bit like a story at first, so you can kind of like embrace what it would feel like. And then we give you character development with background information, dialogue suggestions. We give you tons of tips and tricks on how to get into character and all of these things, how to set the scene for your night. So again, we want so much more for you than just like a situation. And then
what's the time commitment per role play essentially? Because I mean, like, I feel like a lot of couples fall into that routine of monotonous, boring sex or no sex because your schedule in your life is so crazy. And, somebody's just fulfilling some sort of duty, versus, being into it because nobody has time anymore for connection. And sex becomes like a 5-minute, 10-minute thing where it really should be a connecting of like a day, this or that. But like, what essentially is kind of like the basics of like a time frame that you tell people, like, commit to each other, what, an hour, commit to each other 3 hours, a day, a night,
I agree. So they will really vary per role play, but I will give you a suggestion. So naturally having a role play date is going to be a lot more work than just calling in and getting a reservation and going out to dinner. Just because you've got to think about like, your prep work before. What do I need to help me feel into character?
Hmm.
Is there anything that I might want to try? Is there any small gifts? Do I need to buy a temporary tattoo and put it somewhere on my body that would be fun to reveal as the night gets sexier? Do I want to debut a new pair of shoes that I was in the market for anyways? As a
Hmm.
guy, are you going to want to, maybe you always have a beard and you decided to trim it up or make it into a goatee. So these are like fun little
Okay.
ways that we're trying to have you feel you change something, even one small thing about you is going to help, change is going to help you feel a little bit more into character. And we can go
Right.
into that more later. But the time wise, naturally is more. And you're gonna probably find yourself needing a couple hours over the days before your role play date. And then I would say on average, the actual role play date, we're telling you who's making the first initial contact, how you
Hmm.
should contact them. We give you invitation templates, text templates. So it's really easy. There's no
Guesswork.
unmet expectations.
Yeah.
Like we're telling you what you need to know and what the surprises are. So, and the actual dates are gonna be, I'd say between 1 to 4 hours, and they can obviously
Okay.
go all
Yep.
day long if you wanted, if you were taking it somewhere out. So again, we have role play dates where you're out on the town, and we have them where you're going to recreate a bar scene in your kitchen, or you're going to pretend your master bedroom is a hotel room and you are a maid that is working. And I mean, they're so much better than what I just said.
Yeah.
You'll have to
So yeah,
trust
give me
me.
like your top five that you would say are like the biggest ones that you find people are more drawn to. Like, do people kind of tell
Okay.
you which ones they're going for when
Yeah,
like,
for
yeah,
sure. And
okay.
then we can see out of all of the role play dates, we can see which flings are chosen the most. And then the number
Yeah.
one is called the maid. And this is where you are going to be dressed up as a maid or whatever that looks like to you. Guys, you don't
Hmm.
have to have a French maid dress on. You can just do whatever. And she goes in to do this like nighttime turn down service in the bedroom. There's pillows all over the bed. She doesn't even notice that there's actually a patron there, which happens to be your partner or your husband
Hmm.
laying in bed, and he's getting to watch this cute show that you kind of put on as you pretend to be dusting or vacuuming. And I know you're probably thinking like the last thing I want to do is pretend I'm dusting or vacuuming. Don't, girl, you are. You're gonna have fun, and you're gonna flaunt your little assets, whatever that looks like. You're gonna reach high and go low and kind of saunter around. You don't know he's there, so maybe pretend you don't. And then I don't want to reveal too much, but this is one of those where we have them categorized as where it would be surprises for him. So if you are listening and you're a guy, you need to choose this one because, and then after you kind of clean and you're, put on your little show, you have this mini bar basket that is kind
Hmm.
of just a little bit more sensual because the hotel that you work at is it's pretty high end, top tier, Las Vegas style. So of course it's going to have all of these sexy little things that you might need to explore together. And you're going to go closer to that bed to put the mini bar basket. And all of a sudden you see this man there. And then how he's got some prompts to talk to you. And then you're just going to go back and forth. But why you have the hours before a role play date even starts is that you're curating a sexy mini bar basket. You can use all the things you have already in your own house. You can maybe get on to a fun little website. Amazon's fabulous and pick up a few different little things.
Hmm.
I don't want to reveal it because, the maid is
Absolutely.
kind of
Yeah.
like one of
People
the
need to
best
get
ones.
it. Yeah.
Right, right. So that is a good one.
Okay.
And you're going to have to bear with me. Maybe that didn't sound crazy exciting, but
I know. I mean, like, I'm just listening to you
it's
and I'm excited, but I also am one of those, I'm a very situational person. So
mhm,
the the same old crawling into bed, whatever, like that doesn't work for me. I like situations. Situations turn me on more so than anything else. So the whole idea of like even myself being a good girl, if I was working at a hotel, what girl doesn't have that fantasy of opening up some hotel room to clean it and all of a sudden your celebrity crush or the hot tennis player you saw down at the pool or whoever is in there and comes out of a shower and he's wet and like it turns into this whole thing. Like how many
right.
movies are made around the maid falling in love with the hot guy in the hotel? So I do feel like that's a very erotic and like big fantasy that people do have and want to fulfill. So I mean, yeah, I'm excited about it.
I mean, we'll
Like,
get that all the time. They're like, "Oh my gosh, I felt like I was in my own like rom-com series. Like it was
yeah,
so fun.
yeah.
Like I felt like he swept me away and we've been married for, 8 years or whatever the case may be. So if you like situations or like settings and scenarios, we have
Yeah.
one called The Artist. And again, this one is all surprises for him, but it's really fun because he's just lost a fantasy football bet. Okay. So he was in football. A lot of times men are in these fantasy football leagues, and the loser usually gets this like awful punishment. And his awful punishment is to have to go to this like art class downtown, like wherever city he lives in. And unbeknownst to him, everybody is canceled that night. So it's just going to be this like sensual art class with just the instructor, and it just gets a little bit wild. So we give you different ideas, like you're actually going to paint a little bit, and then we give the suggestions of like edible paints or body paints, and it just gets sexier from there. Like, are you going to think like, oh my gosh, I think I would be really fun just to paint my husband tonight? No, but like with Faithful Fling, we're giving you these crazy ideas of like, I had no idea. And then I am kind of ruining this one. It's called The Artist. Still should give it a shot, but you're going to put a drop cloth down, right? And you're experiencing this, and hopefully, I mean, it could be in your bedroom, it could be anywhere at all, but it's going to look a little bit more like an art studio than your bedroom. You're going to take down your throw pillows, you're going to take down all of your pictures, you're going to make your room look a little bit more minimalistic. So these are easy ways to feel like your room isn't your bedroom. And you're going to kind of go through a actual painting of a picture, and you're going to talk and flirt. And then it's just going to be like, I really like to explore different mediums. Do you mind if I try your chest? And then you kind of go from there. But this drop cloth is on the floor. And after you've had all your fun, we want you to hang up that drop cloth and find kind of like a unique space on it. Even if it's like a 4x6 print where colors are blended, then we want, like, as a follow-up gift, you're going to cut that out and like frame it in your room, and you're going to leave it. So this is like what you made when you were in The Artist. We decide who is going to make the initial contact. We give you location ideas, dialogue suggestions, all the links for any costume, any sort of props, or any sort of anything you might need for that one role play date, all in one location. And we also give you a follow-up section where this kind of you're going to do within a day to 3 days, which just kind of like wraps it back up and helps you feel like, hey, that was fun. Like, I've gotten so many things like, oh my gosh, we keep that like little piece of art on our bedside table because we like to remember how fun that night was. And that was just from having a little art class in our bedroom. So that's like, we want to make it different than what you're going to do on your own. And I don't remember if I said this or not, Sarah, but one thing about Faithful Fling that's really unique is that you and your partner have two totally different usernames and passwords. And that's going to keep your roleplay description completely private from theirs. And we do it for this way, or for two reasons. One is for you to be able to change anything that you like to make it, comfortable for you. And then number two, to add in those sexy elements of surprises. Like I'm going to start painting your chest, or here is a naughty basket that I've curated for just tonight. Or when we were talking about bondage earlier, I'm not going to just use my tight, I'm not going to just use like a rope or a tie. I'm actually going to have you take off my stockings with one hand, and then I'm going to have you roll it down, and I'm going to use that stocking and wrap up your hands. And then you can't use your hands anymore. So I'm going to have you use your teeth on my other leg to roll down that stocking. And I'm going to tie your eyes up with it. So now you're a little bit blindfolded, but my stocking happens to be a little iridescent, so you can kind of see what's going on. The lights are down low, your hands are bound. So I feel like I might feel a little bit more comfortable and confident to give you a little lap dance while you're sitting here. You see how we're doing these things that you're probably not going to think up all on your own. And we just are here to like give you tons of surprises. Now,
how long does it take you to write a scenario and to come up with all of these things? Like, how much time and energy for yourself is it to put into this?
I've gotten a little bit better just with anything. You get a little quicker, but weeks to like a 2 weeks to a month. So it takes me a lot of time because really I'm making one for him and one for her. And I've got to make sure that they blend and are together. So if you did it really detailed, kind of like a book or something, that's too difficult because then if you're the person
Mhm.
that's trying to have this role play date, you're going to feel like you have to look at your phone or a piece of paper to make sure you get all the details
Right.
right, right?
Yeah.
So it can't be too detailed, but then it can't be too vague because we need to do all the work so you can have all the
Yeah.
fun. So there's just this like fine line in between of what we're trying to do. And the way we write it is we write it a little bit like a story, and then we
Mhm.
say setting the stage. These are all the things that you need to do before your role play date even starts. We say who is going to have the initial contact, and then we have something called it's fling time. And this is suggestions on what your night could look like. And you
Mhm.
have to remember that you're the curator of this role play date. I'm just giving you prompts, and I trust you and your spouse or your partner enough to make it your very own, because I
Mhm.
could write the same role play date and it's going to look different for every single couple that does it because you make it your own.
Right.
And then again, we have that little follow up section, and then we have the spice it up section to really kind of elevate your night, to
Mhm.
incorporate some of those tying you up or a blindfold, or
Yeah.
it's kind of saying something like introducing dirty talk or something like that. So we're just encouraging you to make it your own, but
Mhm.
giving you enough detail that you don't feel like you're just all on your own.
Totally. Katie, do you host like webinars and workshops to help women kind of overcome the insecurities or the fear and the shyness? Like, do you have that kind of a platform where women can lean on each other or lean on you for support while they're trying to kind of step out of their comfort zone to do
Right.
this? Because I mean, essentially, it's a lot for
It's a
somebody who's
lot.
never done anything. And I don't like the
Yep.
term vanilla when it comes to sex. I know that's a big term used in like the lifestyle, but I don't like that term because I don't really feel that there's anything ever really considered that's vanilla. Vanilla, like we said before, is everybody has their own idea of what that could be. But people who just, they're so new to anything outside of what they've just been taught. And let's be honest, when we're talking about sex in general, nobody is taught sex in a pleasure type of way. It's more for, procreation and all those other things.
Procreation. Or
Yeah,
the other aspect of
right?
allowing a woman to feel like you're not just acted upon, or you do it to
Yeah.
make him so
Yep.
he doesn't cheat. And this is what you do because he pays all your bills, or like,
Yeah.
oh my
Like, I
gosh, we
have to
have
do
got to
this
get
to
away
save
from
my
that.
marriage, or like you said, like, I like
No,
the term faithful, like, because unfortunately, there is a lot of stepping out, and
absolutely.
there's a lot more dynamics in relationships now in polyamorous type of relationships or ethical non-monogamy. Like, there's all of these different avenues of relationships and sex lives and things that exist more so now than they ever did before. Do you think that is because of the fact that a lot of people have a hard time maintaining the spark within their own relationship and marriage, that they feel like almost they need to add that portion of it
I know
versus
what you're
this is
saying.
another way that, hey, let's try this first before thinking bringing somebody else into our relationship or opening up our relationship is what would actually fix it or save it, right? I know that
I
was a
do
whole
think,
lot.
oh no, that's okay. I think our whole idea is to keep monogamy hot. We're just
Mhm.
trying to give you one extra tool to try to keep monogamy hot. And we think that role playing can do that. I'm not sure that I would say like try role playing to avoid bringing somebody else into your relationship.
Mhm.
I think it's probably a lot deeper than that, and you may need to look into, quite a bit more to, because I don't think role playing is probably gonna be the like thing to make everything stop. So if
Yeah,
those are your thoughts and that's not where you're really wanting to go, and again, like you mentioned, if that is where you want to go, there's so many different avenues, and it's looking
right.
as if it's like
Yeah,
way more
yeah,
mainstream. As long as it's consensual and safe and that's
yeah,
what you want to do, then do it unapologetically. Same thing with a role play date. If you
yeah,
and your spouse are wanting to have a role play date and it's just between you and them, and it's consensual and feels safe, then
yeah,
go for it and do that. Embracing different characters can feel fresh and vibrant and new, and using your imagination rather than it being I'm in a new character and it kind of feels like we brought somebody else in. I think for me there's a distinct,
mhm,
a line between that
right.
that and maybe a role play date would fulfill that for some couples, but for most of the time, I would say a role play date is more of a way to bring pleasure and connection, use your imagination and play off of your fantasies. Because with the right communication and emotional security, exploring and talking about your
Right.
fantasies can be a really connecting and fun way to,
Okay.
enjoy the bedroom. But
Yeah.
then the other question is, it is a goal in 2025 for me to do more workshops to
Okay.
help women feel a little bit more in control of what may be happening for a role play date. Like, I'd
Mm.
love to start offering like a cute little video per role play date that says, hey, if I were going to do this role play date, these are the top 3 things that I would
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Because we give you so much information that I'm writing for the masses and not just for like one person. So I may tell someone to like, all right, I want you to hit all 5 senses. Well, that's too much for someone.
Yeah.
And they're just going to decide to change up my look. I just want to change one thing. And we like change. I'm sure you've heard that like the sense of smell is super powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So if you just did one thing, maybe only have a perfume, a lotion, a hairspray, a cologne that
Mm-hmm.
you only use during a role play date can have like crazy impact. What about if you use those temporary tattoos? Like for someone like
Yeah.
me that doesn't have any, when we get undressed and I have one somewhere, that's really hot and fun to
Mm-hmm.
like see. Like it feels different than what I usually do. A wig or a haircut. That maybe the guy
Mm-hmm.
needs a haircut anyways, and he decides to reveal that. Like it doesn't have to be this huge thing, but I would tell them these are a few of the things that I would do to help me feel more in character. And
Mm-hmm.
these are some of the sexy things that I want to implement and reveal throughout the night, throughout our fling or our role
Mm-hmm.
play date that I think sound most intriguing to me. I think that that could be great. I have done 3 workshops before to help with role
Mm-hmm.
play dates. You can find those on our website. It's just faithfulfling.com.
Do you do one-on-one consultations with people then as they're going through this for, I guess, a woman or the man to kind of have more of that detailed, hey, this is what I'm struggling with? Like when people reach
Mhm.
out to you, is that something that they can also schedule with you?
They certainly can. I've gone back and forth between emails. I
Mhm.
have not set up like a coaching service
Okay.
yet, but again, I do have some goals in 2025 because
Mhm.
the idea can seem really fun and intriguing. Then you get on the website, you get your first role play date, and you can be like, I can totally do this. Sounds so fun. I would
Yeah.
have never thought to try to do this. Other people roll with it and are just fine. But I want to help those that are still intrigued and curious about the idea, doesn't think it's just like the dumbest thing that they've ever heard, but aren't quite sure
Totally.
how to do it.
Yeah.
Because I can give you all the tips and tricks and ideas, but sometimes you just need that encouragement that might feel a little bit more personal just to you, that isn't to the masses, and can
Mhm.
be, like really impactful just for their situation. So you can see that
Absolutely.
coming in 2025
Yeah.
because it's needed. And again, this role play date, which we're talking about it, but it does go beyond that because
Mhm.
really we're wanting you to have a fresh, vibrant, passion filled sex life. We think everybody should have that. This is just a tool that you can implement. Maybe a role play date for you is like 4 times a year. It
Mhm.
could be another couple that they're like once a month. And everyone's like, well, how often do you guys role play? Like, what does that look like in for you?
Mhm.
And I just laugh. I'm like, oh, wow, we would probably be really disappointing in what's in their mind. But we obviously try out the ones that we've written.
Yeah.
We know the surprises that are going to implement, except if I write it and they're all surprises for him, then he doesn't know. And he'll be like, you know what could have been really fun is if we did this. And I will also have my husband. We have different voices, we have different writing styles.
Mhm.
Sometimes he's written his own flings completely by himself. I'm typically the one that writes everything, but he'll go in there and give, like, hey guys, your wife is going to be crazy vulnerable. This is time only for compliments. Like, this is
I
it.
love
This is
that.
your time
Yeah.
to make her feel like she's beautiful. Everything that you have always wanted, like you're so glad you married her. Like this is the
Mhm.
time to make her feel fabulous. So we have
Mhm.
these like little like moments where we're like, hey, yes, if you really want this to be hot, then compliments are the way to go. There's no complaints tonight.
Yeah.
We have another one. It's called the realtor. And this is going to be when you don't have anyone at home. Somehow your kids are all gone. You got real creative and grandparents took them or your
Mhm.
friends, and you're just going to walk through your house and find. I mean, she has all of the prompts it gets that's given, and it's going to be a wild time because this realtor is going to look at someone's property that's getting ready to move and maybe wants to be a listing agent. And again, this is where it can kind of get a little tricky where you're like, oh my gosh, those are so cliche. Okay, well, you tell me how cliche it is when finally, like, have you ever
Yeah. Yeah.
had some, like a sexual experience on top of your washer? Well, you might get the giggles the next time you use it. Like, we
Yeah.
want just these like little fun things to kind of like be a memory, like the little picture that you made in the artist, and maybe you're wearing a t-shirt and you decided you wanted to have the fling where you're kind of like a Western, like a Yellowstone vibe. And then the next time you go out, you still, threw on those boots and you kind of get like this little nod, like, hey, I remember that night. That was fun. We just want unique, different experiences for you to have. And we feel like occasionally having a role play date could be just the thing to keep it spicy and
Well,
hot.
and it
And
sounds fun, right? And I think it really does force people to kind of just make that time for each other. And maybe it'll be a flop. Maybe schedule it, you book the time, you do all the things, and maybe 5 minutes in, you both just start laughing and you can't follow
you're
through.
like,
But you have the time, you laugh together, and like you're still connecting. And then maybe that actually initiates, like a really good intimate experience because you shared the
conversation
silliness of it,
afterwards.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
Some of our role play dates, we're telling you to text in character for
Yeah.
days beforehand. But some of these sexy elements that we were talking about, we also on our website, I'm starting to write more of these as well. So we have flings, which are role play dates, and then we have something called fringe dates. And this is when you're feeling like sexy and spicy all on your own. There's
Hmm.
no role play dates, but you're still going to implement those sexy surprises that we're talking about that we write that your spouse doesn't know. Like, he
Yeah.
didn't know I was going to ask him to take off my stockings with his teeth and, with
Yeah.
consent, of course, wrap up his wrist with it. He had no idea, but that can be really fun. So even if you think to yourself, like, oh, that sounds super hot, but I'm not totally sure about a role play date, try one of those French dates.
Yeah.
They're really fun too.
I think I like it because it's like, I can't even tell you how many memes or Instagram reels or anything you see out there where it's just like texting with whoever before and they're saying all the things they're going to do to me when they get here. And then it's
Yes.
like they get here and none of that happens. And it's like, yeah, over text or call or whatever. It's like everybody's like, when you come there, I want you waiting for me on your hands and knees and like only call me sir and all these things. And then like they walk in the door and you're still in your sweats and it's
Like all the things, naughty
non-existent.
things I texted. Yeah,
Yeah, but like
right.
nobody follows through. And I don't know if it's because nobody realizes is like, yeah, I actually genuinely have this fantasy or this craving and I want you to do this and I want you to take charge and I want you to be that person. And I think it's hot if you are waiting for me. You freeze when the time comes because it's like we had the sexy conversation not in front of each other, but now like nobody's bringing it up when you're together. Nobody wants to be the person that's like, hey, I thought you were supposed to be waiting on the bed for me with like, your hands
Mhm.
here and this and that. But again, this is such an intentional thing where both parties are like, no, we're investing in this and we're going to do it. And here's how it's going to be done. And you're walking them through that.
This is
I
what
want
time
to,
it starts. And,
yeah, right?
raise that roll and go for it. And one other quick thing is
Yep.
the reason we have the separate usernames and passwords is because we don't want every role play date for you to be like, oh, she was supposed to do this and he was supposed to say
Yeah.
that. That's why we keep it separate. So it has that like kind of feeling of first date butterflies that you don't quite know what's going to happen,
Hmm.
as well as you have the power to implement the, sexy surprises in there if you want or not.
Yeah.
So,
So
girl,
how do
yeah.
people overcome that? Like the shyness just in general, or, what would be like your best tips that you would give either a guy or a girl of, you know, how to really be able to, once you're in person, follow through? Because it is one thing to say something behind hiding behind a text or a this or a that. But like when you are in person, like to really kind of overcome that initial, conversation or action of them kind of like getting into it.
Right. So for me, I'm just gonna be like, I'm gonna do it anyways, even though I'm a little nervous. I'm
Hmm.
gonna do it anyways, even though I don't quite know how he's gonna look at me afterwards. I'm
Hmm.
gonna do it anyways. And then the other little thing that gives me this confidence is that I trust him.
Yeah.
I'm willing to be vulnerable, and he's gonna think I'm amazing and love me probably even more because of it. So that's what helps me.
Mhm.
So look at them as like the human that they are and think about like the reasons that you are creating a life with them right now and lean into that because that's them. kind of exploring that like naughty little, maybe it doesn't even have to be naughty, but that like little part of inside of you
Mhm.
that would be fun to be like, hey, I do think it might be kind of fun to walk into a room and you're like this, like you were
Right.
mentioning. So
Yeah.
that is it. Lean into it all the way. Because if you don't go like full send, then it can feel you just allowing yourself to take some steps back and not feel as confident. So just say it right at 6 o'clock when we start our, role play date, or
Mhm.
we are gonna make do on those texts that we just said. That's what's happening. 6 o'clock. Whatever. We've had kids that have gotten sick in the middle of the night. I mean, interruptions. Like we've been
Mm.
on a role play date that no one else in their right mind would know because I look like me and he looks like him. And, someone from work comes up. Well, guess what? I'm just going to pop out of character real quick and deal with
Mhm.
whatever scenario it is. And then for me and him, we're able to easily like hop back in. Does that mean that with that sick kid, like, no, that was probably the end of the night. I'm going to catch up with you soon. But that's part of life. Interruptions happen. How you deal with them to still have a connecting experience afterwards and your
Mhm.
willingness to want to. I recognize that if you're the only one that's wanting to really try it and they're just kind of trying to go along with you, that you're probably going to have a little bit more of a gap to try to bridge there.
Yeah,
I
for
I
sure.
get that. I honor that, and that is challenging, but I also encourage you just to keep
Just to
going with it.
try. Yeah. Do you guys have a stripper role play one?
No, I don't have a stripper role play one. I mean, I
Really?
definitely have a strip tease, but she's not a stripper. I mean, we
Ooh.
have one that we're like, you take that off and I'm going to take this off, but you can't touch each other. You're looking at each other from across the room.
Oh, I feel
I've
like you
got
need to
that
write like
one.
a stripper one where it's like, because I just feel like, I mean, like how many men go to strip clubs? So many
No,
guys
I
go to
get
the
you.
strip club because they had that fantasy of like, the woman giving them the lap dance, and then the lap dance turns into something more. And,
Oh,
the
my lap dance one
stripper,
is good.
right? Okay.
That's the one I was telling you about. Like, so she's not, that's actually one of the fringe dates, but you're putting the room is dark. It's lit
Hmm.
by, candlelight. So one that helping you not feel like you're so much on display. Okay. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to
Yeah.
think of it from a female's perspective that maybe isn't bold with confidence. Like I had 3 kids. I kind of have some roles and you like them anyways. I'm fine with it. I like them a lot. So
Yeah.
I happen to be a little bit more of a confident person just in general, but I try to write it in such a way that's going to help someone else overcome this. So you've got the fantasy. He can't touch you. His hands are on the side. You put your high heel right between his knees.
Hmm.
You instruct him to roll down your sleeve, right? So you're going to be stripping, but maybe you're feeling a little inferior or insecure. And that's when you're going to put that sheer other stocking across his eyes. So if he doesn't have like the boldest view of you, I mean, I am an amazing lap dancer if he's kind of got like an obscure view, but I'm
Hmm.
pretty sure if like, it was like bright bold, he'd be like, wow, you kind of been like a piece of steel.
Right? Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
with the right setting, oh my gosh, it can be so hot. You just have to try to create the setting. And that's what we're here is to help you create it. But if I'm going to write a stripper one and I'm going to send it to you.
Do please. Like, it's funny because like I stripped for so many years and I have friends that we talk about all the time. I miss it, but I don't miss it because of what it was. I miss the eroticness of it. I miss the
Oh,
feeling.
yeah.
It's like you're in your lingerie, your hair's done, the perfume, you're walking around in heels, the dark lit room that just accentuates all your right curves. You don't see the stretch marks and the red this or that.
No.
And the fact that it's like in my mind mentally, that guy is paying me to give him a lap dance. I know he desires me. I know he thinks I'm hot. And so it's like you can just fully get into the character of being so sensual. I mean, yeah, it might be a guy like you're not attracted to and you don't want him, but it's still a role. I'm acting as this person for that person. And just in doing that for myself in a lap dance, it's like I feel so sensual and I feel so sexy and I feel so beautiful. Do I wish it was my partner or somebody that I thought was super hot and I want to
Yeah.
take home at the end of it? Of course. But just to like be there
Do
and
you
to
see
do
the
it.
power?
Yeah.
Because you liked it. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like as women, when we're like, oh, I like to dress up for my husband, you're
Yeah.
like shamed for it. Like, what do you
Yeah.
mean you like to do
Yeah.
that for him? I'm like, I like it because how it makes me feel. And he's kind of the
Hmm.
added bonus. Like, can you not, like, you liked to strip in this idea that you were just telling me about because it
Yeah.
made you feel sensual and erotic. And there is nothing wrong with that, friends. You
Right?
can embrace it and it's hot and it's even better. I bought this really sexy black dress that had like a zipper that went up and down, and I had gotten new shoes. We weren't on a role play date, but
Mhm.
don't you think that I didn't walk out with that dress on and then like saunter my, make my steps over exaggerated in front of each other to try to make
Mhm.
my hips pop a little bit, and then like unzip my dress so you could see everything. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't exactly a thought out thing, but I mean, he liked it. And I thought it
Yeah.
was fun because it made me feel sensual, desired, erotic. I liked it. It
Mhm.
wasn't only for him, it was also for me. So if you feel like you're only doing something for your partner, maybe like internalize it a little bit
Yeah.
and think a little bit more about like what I like, kind of like just get
Mhm.
curious about it. Get
Yeah.
curious
Oh,
and
for
what
sure.
does that look like? So I love all those things. I kind of went on a little wild tangent there, but did he like it? Yeah.
I think there's so much power in having that healthy relationship where you do kind of have that trust in one another to keep each other
Mm-hmm.
safe emotionally, to be able to do these things together versus the person who, I mean, maybe if you're not in a great relationship, this isn't necessarily like something to step into thinking it's going
Sure.
to fix it and whatever. But it's funny because it's like, even as we're talking about it, it's like thinking that is like, yeah, it's like, I've never stripped or given a lap dance to any partner I've had. And I don't know, like for myself, it is that block of like, well, this guy's paying me, so I know he's into me. Of course, you should know your partner's into you. But I think when you're not used to a healthy relationship, that's a thing where it's just like you have that thing where it's just like, well, if I do put on lingerie or if I do this, is it going to go well or is it going to go bad or how's it going to go? And then there's that massive block for people. So obviously for the women who maybe this is something they think that they really want to do and step into, it's like I really think it's like having to take stock in what kind of a relationship do you actually have right now? And is this something that you can do safely emotionally in your
Right.
relationship to have it be enhanced? Or is this something that, like, you know, it's going to give the exact opposite of that? And then you're going to kind of
Mm-hmm.
like retreat back into that shell of feeling like you're not worthy, you're not desirable, and you're not sexy. It's like, don't try to go outside of your comfort for somebody, because I mean, women do it all the time where it's like, maybe he'll treat me better if I do this. Maybe
This.
he'll love me better or make me feel sexy or wanna have sex with me if I do this. Don't do it. That is such the wrong way, and I think you're gonna end up getting a negative reaction that's gonna make you feel so much worse about your relationship and about yourself, and then we lose our self-worth, and then we don't feel sexy anyways, and we carry that
It's
forward in
like a
so many things.
vicious, I mean, and then on the opposite side of that, if you do want to do something that maybe
Mhm.
they suggest, or a strip tease or
Yeah.
a role play date, and you do want to do it, and you're like, but I don't know if that's allowed. Hey, you know what? There's no bedroom police. It is
Yeah.
just between you and your partner. And if you
Mhm.
decide you both want to give it a shot, then give it, and and it's consensual and you feel safe and you
Mhm.
feel like they're trustworthy people, go ahead and try it. And
Yeah.
you might laugh and be like, never again. I am the worst stripper or the worst role player there has ever been. But don't
Mhm.
let an outside influence that, with those quotes like
Yeah.
that's not allowed. Like, who in the
Yeah.
world is they? Like, who
Right?
who are
Yeah.
they?
Yeah.
So you get to decide. I'm like consensual and safe.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
for me, it's consensual and safe and it's monogamous. It's just
Mhm.
between us. It's consensual and it's safe.
Yeah, I
Let's
love
try
that.
it and maybe not.
Yeah, awesome. Oh, thank you so much for sharing. I mean, it really is such like a fun conversation to have and exciting. For everybody listening, can you just give me your details? Where can they find you? Social media platforms, websites, where can they contact you and get a hold of everything to look into this?
Thank you. You can find us. We're faithfulfling.com. We're a
Mhm.
website. You can find all the information, our subscription packages. And just remember that our first fling is always free. And we have a
Mm.
free 21-day trial. And we've had thousands of couples around the world enjoy it. And then I'm also on Instagram at Faithful Fling. So I would love to hear from you. It would be so fun.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go to your guys' website and check it out too, because I just think it sounds so fun, especially because somebody's taken the guesswork out of it for you to the detail that you guys have to be able to give that to people to just to try to even read to see what it is. And like you said, maybe you read it, you see it, and you're like, okay, not for me. But maybe you
Yep.
do, and you're like,
That's great.
I'm totally intrigued by this, and like, I'm going to dive into this. So, yeah, no, I think it's great. Is there anything else for everybody listening? One last thing you want to share with them that they should know about, you, your company, the website?
Thank you. I would just say sometimes you have to be more courageous than confident.
Mhm.
And that's okay. Sometimes you just have to have the courage to try something, and that's great. But I really do want everyone to have a vibrant, passion filled relationship with themselves as well as with their partner, because I think it can feel really connecting. And I want everyone to not only embrace their sexuality, but their eroticism,
Yeah.
because it just makes everything heightened and better and more connecting. And I love that. But
No, I love
again, free
that.
trial. Give us a
Yeah.
shot. You never know
Yeah,
until you do.
absolutely. Well, thank you very much. And for everybody listening, don't forget to check out the episode on YouTube and make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Thank you.